time for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie Kay.
Hello and welcome to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie Kay, and we are mixing things up a little bit. This is our first show with a 2-hour format. And what it is we're doing weird news at the beginning, and then we have a long discussion with a really good guest. And we've got some interesting things coming up for you. My guest today is Maxim Furek. And then at the end of the hour, at the end of the 2 hours, I will open it up for questions from the chat that if anybody has anything that they want me to remote view. And I will also take questions in advance. If you have a question you'd like to send to me by email, you can send it to margiek@unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com. Be in advance of the show, anytime during the week, and then I'll bring it up during the show later and I can answer a question. Kind of limiting it to 1 or 2 questions per person. If you do want a longer reading, I do 30-minute readings. You can check my website at margiek.com for that. But there are some strange things that have happened lately, so we're going to start off with the weird news segment.
Now it's time for weird news.
All right. In searching the internet this week, looking for weird news, my assistant Violet Wisdom came up with some really good ones. And this first part is going to be interesting because it is so close to Easter at the moment. And these are just weird Easter traditions from around the world. And I'm sure you have not heard of all of these. There are some very strange things. But for the most part, celebrations for Easter across the Christian world feature plenty of commonalities, giving up something for Lent, the Easter Bunny bringing chocolate eggs, eating fish on Good Friday, and going to Easter Sunday service. But not everyone is Christian, and there are some other traditions. There are a number around the world that put their own spin on things. The first one is the Easter Bilby from Australia. In an attempt to raise awareness about the dwindling bilby population and promote native wildlife's European introduced rabbits, confectioners in Australia have taken to making chocolate likenesses of this small rabbit-sized marsupial. The bilby once occupied 80% of the continent, but now it exists only in a few regions. So they're trying to bring awareness to the possible extinction of this little creature. And then we have a massive omelet in France. This started a long time ago with Napoleon Bonaparte. He had his army, of course, once passing through the region, with the general staying in a local inn and enjoying the omelet there so much that he ordered all the eggs in the village to be collected so his soldiers could enjoy the same delicacy the following day. And as the man once said, an army marches on its stomach. So each family in the village breaks the eggs in their homes in the morning, and they gather in the main square where the eggs are cooked for lunch and dinner and breakfast the next morning. And this is on Easter, the residents of Haux, H-A-U-X, usually crack more than 4,500 eggs into a gigantic pan to create a massive Easter omelet that serves over 1,000 people. Yep, that is strange. But we're going to get even weirder here. In Hungary, In certain parts of Hungary, women dress up in traditional clothes on Easter Sunday and run through the streets where boys will splash them with buckets of water as they run past. This ritual finds its root in Hungary's pre Christian past as far back as the 2nd century AD, and it's meant to promote fertility. Uncomfortable, yes, but it certainly beats getting the Czechs' Easter tradition. Keep reading to find out. So this is from Wanderlust, just to give them credit. So this next one, The Witches of Easterwick in Finland. Halloween comes early to Finland and Sweden as children dress up as witches and wander the streets with broomsticks. These young witches knock on doors, offering blessings in the form of willow twigs decorated with colorful feathers and crepe paper in exchange for treats. Sounds a little bit like Halloween. Finnish householders keep a basket of small chocolate Easter eggs handy or some loose change to fend off the wandering witches. The tradition is said to have come from the belief that witches would fly to Blackula, which means Blue Island in Swedish, and cavort with Satan. Bonfires are meant to scare them away. Goodness, some strange things. And then we have tobacco trees in Papua New Guinea. Evidently, they don't eat chocolate in Papua New Guinea, so Easter trees are a part of their celebrations instead. People dress up their trees with tobacco and cigarettes and use them as places of worships leading up to Easter. In churches, small trees are decorated with sticks of tobacco and cigarettes as well, and these are handed out after the Easter service and smoked to celebrate the resurrection. It's getting weirder. Don't worry. There's one here that I'm not even going there. I'm skipping that one. The Easter Bunny sees red in Greece. Easter's known around the world for multicolored decorated eggs, and in the United States, it's usually pastel eggs. But in Greece, you'll find only red eggs. Red is the color of life, as well as a representation of the blood of Christ. The eggs were used in a game called Surigma, which means clinking together or clashing, and test the egg's strength. Players crack the eggs together, and the one whose egg remains intact is crowned as the victor. From ancient times, the egg has been a symbol of the renewal of life, and the message of the red eggs is victory over death. And then this one is really strange. The Norwegians have, I think, maybe the weirdest one. From time to time in Norway, television channels run crime shows and a slew of new detective novels called Paskarims. They're commissioned to come out just before Easter. People across the country escape into their mountain cabins and spend the weekend with the whodunit television shows or books. Even the milk cartons carry short detective stories on their ride during the season. The phenomena was triggered by the immense popularity of a crime novel in 1923 set on the Bergen Railway. It's February 2023. The two young and broke Norwegian authors, Nordhall Grieg and Nils Lai, suddenly come up with a steaming idea. To cash in big, they decide to write a best-selling crime novel. The publisher is on board. The Sunday before Easter, they launch a major advertising campaign in which the book's title, Bergen Train Looted in the Night, gets the top spot on the front page of the Norwegian newspaper. The stunt turns heads. The ad is so believable that most people don't realize it is fiction. They believe the train has actually been robbed. The drama gets massive attention and the novel becomes a huge success. Hence, an ongoing tradition since 1923. Then we have the Great Easter Bunny Hunt in New Zealand. While the rest of the world hunts for Easter eggs, the good folk of Otago grab their guns for the annual Great Easter Bunny Hunt. The idea is to rid farmlands of invasive pests, with over 500 hunters vying for the coveted trophy and the New Zealand 3,500 prize money. While over 10,000 rabbits meet their maker each year, organizers say it's unlikely to have an impact on their numbers in the area. Nevertheless, the Easter Bunny would be wise to give Otago a wide berth. Now, yeah, this is very strange, and I really hope that they quit doing this one. This is in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. It's called whip cracking. Women in the Czech Republic on Easter Sunday is perhaps, they should probably stay indoors. Local men and boys roamed the streets with gaily decorated willow switches, usually adorned with ribbons, looking for girls to lightly whip. The whipping is not intended to be painful, but instead is meant to encourage good health and beauty. You may feel otherwise, and the tradition is seen as quite controversial now. I can't imagine they're still doing something like that. Oh my goodness. And then, so that's Easter. If you have a strange Easter tradition, or if you've heard of something else, go ahead and pop that in the chat for me. I'd like to take a look at that. I know there are pagan traditions, Celtic traditions. Ostara was actually the original holiday before it was called Easter. So we can look at that at another time. In other weird news this has to do with cryogenics. In a breakthrough that sounds ripped straight from a Ridley Scott flick, researchers in Germany have managed to freeze brain tissue to ultra cold temperatures and bring it back with key signs of life, including electrical activity linked to learning and memory. The feat, detailed in a new study published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, suggests that one day scientists may be able to place brain tissue or even entire organs into a deep freeze and revive them later without wrecking the delicate circuitry that makes them tick, originally reported on nature.com. But that's long been the sticking point. When biological tissue freezes the old-fashioned way, water inside the cells crystallizes into jagged ice shards that shred membranes and sever the microscopic connections between neurons. In a breakthrough that sounds ripped straight from a Ridley Scott flick. Okay, we've already did that one. And it looks like the samples that were taken sat suspended in a glassy deep freeze anywhere from 10 minutes to a week. But then scientists carefully reheated the tissue at lightning speed while flushing out the chemical antifreeze solution used during freezing, a delicate balancing act designed to prevent the cells from swelling, cracking, or bursting. When the revived brain slices were put under the microscope, the team saw something remarkable. The microscopic structures linking neurons, synapses, appeared intact. So here we have maybe the future about cryogenics and freezing bodies or freezing organs or freezing your brain and then putting it onto a robot later, putting your consciousness into something later is probably not going to be fiction for long. Okay, in other weird news, it turns out that alligators in the storm drain myth is actually true. A 5-foot alligator was removed from his sewer pipe in Oviedo, Florida recently, and they found it by putting a camera down, and the person who was operating the camera saw some eyes moving around, and then the head came up and he could see that it was really an American alligator. Hopefully it doesn't get anywhere serious. And then in Australia, a real possum was discovered among plush toy animals in an Australian airport gift shop. A patron noticed that one of the toys' eyes were moving and took a closer look, only to find a live possum among them. How the animal got there is a mystery, because it could not have been taken in by a person who has to go through different checkpoints. However, the animal was safely removed to the outdoors by airport staff. And finally, in Oregon, the state of Oregon may soon have a new public property, a spectacular waterfall beloved by generations, that was recently put up for sale on Redfin. Abequa Falls, known for its 92-foot vertical drop over a columnar basalt cliff, has been privately owned for over a century, but open to the public. Its owner, a nonprofit that supports a community of Benedictine monks, put it on the market earlier this year. The listing worried fans of the natural wonder because at the tail end of the legislative session this month, a bipartisan group of lawmakers stepped in and approved a $2.1 million purchase for the falls and its surrounding land. It's not every day where you see a waterfall come up for sale on Redfin or Realtor.com with no price, said Travis Williams, president of the Willamette River Preservation Trust, a conservative nonprofit. The public was really confused and fearful that the site would be closed off, but it will not be. The waterfall is about 30 miles east of the state capital of Salem and roughly 50 miles south of Portland. It's reached by a rough, unpaved road and short, steep hike, so steep that previous visitors have left ropes in some spots for assistance. So if you get a chance to see that waterfall, I have seen it actually several years ago when I was traveling from Kansas City to Seattle by car. And we stopped by there, and it's absolutely stunning. It is really worth the trip. Okay, so we're going to have our guests come on here in a few minutes. I do want to remind everybody that if you have questions for me at the end of the show, I will address anything that you want me to take a look at and remote view. And I will also mention that about a week and a half ago, I made a post about a potential future event, the timeline for disclosure being moved up. And a few days after that, Chris Bledsoe made a post as well about the same subject. And he said it is actually Sunday on the 5th when this is going to occur. He gave a date to it. And then I also found another post by Uri Geller, and he is saying basically the same thing. So keep an eye out to the sky. Do not be shocked if you do see a lot of UFOs or something that will make you understand that we are not alone, because a lot of us are getting the same messages. And we're living in some very, very interesting times. Okay, we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we will be speaking with Maxim Furek.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. 2026 is off to a great start, and it's almost time. With many exciting predictions and the recent emphasis on a potential major planetary event occurring in April, it promises to be a super transformational month, and we couldn't be more excited to be in Hawaii during this shift to integrate new frequencies. Folks, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. April the 20th through the 24th, 2026, join us in Kona, Hawaii for Journey to Truth's very first vacation conference retreat. Enjoy 9 presenters over 5 days with ocean adventures with dolphins and whales and sacred sites and so much more. Experience Hawaii like never before. You will enjoy 5 days on the Big Island, so don't wait. Start planning your trip today at journeytotruth.online. That's journeytotruth.online. The paranormal field is changing, and now, more than ever, it's time for professionals to lead the way. Join the Oz Professional Paranormal Investigators Association, a global network of serious investigators dedicated to raising the standard of real paranormal research. Access professional certifications, advanced training, and courses exploring true investigation, psychic phenomena. If you're a real paranormal investigator, be a part of the group defining the future. Join today. Visit ozinstitute.org. That's ozinstitute.org.
And we're back with Unnext News. I'm your host, Margie Kay, and this evening my guest is Maxim Furek. His rich background includes aspects of psychology, addictions, music journalism, and the paranormal. He has a master's degree in communications from Bloomsburg University and a bachelor's degree in psychology from Aquinas College. Maxim has interviewed celebrity demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, White Witch Dr. Frederick Lamont Santee, and Annabelle Handler Dan Rivera. He was featured on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, Exploring the Bizarre with the legendary Timothy Green Buckley and Tim R. Swart, and Art Bell's Midnight in the Desert with Heather Wade. He is a respected contributor to Fate Magazine, Paranormal Underground, and Strange Knocks, showcasing his expertise and knowledge in the field. He was the invited guest speaker at the 2025 Butler, PA Paranormal Conference and the ECBRO Virginia Bigfoot Expo. Maxim has written numerous rock biographies and paranormal-themed books, including The Smurl Haunting, When Ed and Lorraine Came to Town, The Cole Region Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, published by Hangar One, Shepton, The Myth, Miracle, and Music, and Flying Saucer Esoteric, The Altered States of Ufology. This evening, we're going to be talking about his latest book, Paranormal Apocalypse. Welcome to the program, Maxim.
Thank you, Margie, and thank you for the new paranormal news. That was great. A lot of things happening, and I'm glad that you mentioned Florida, because I'm down in Florida, and it should be called Weird Florida. All the crazy stuff happens down here, so it's good that you mentioned us.
Have you seen any alligators in your sewer lately?
No, not lately, no. But sometimes in our backyard, but
oh gosh,
that's the way it is. Yeah.
That's the price you have to pay for living in paradise, I suppose.
Well, yeah, paradise, but they're turning paradise into a parking lot. I mean, there's so much development here. It's pretty wild. I mean, every vacant space available, they have a shopping center or something going up. So there's just a whole lot of growth and development. And I live in on the Gulf side in Ocala. Ocala is the fastest growing community in the US of A. So, go figure.
I believe it. I have several friends who have moved there and they love it.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking for work, there's plenty down here,
I am not looking for work, but I am looking for a nicer place to live than Missouri, or the state of misery, as we call it.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah.
Because we get the Four Seasons big time.
Yeah.
So, Maxim, how did you get interested in paranormal subjects?
Well, first of all, you can imagine that I've been asked that question a million times, but I'm a baby boomer, and us baby boomers were raised on a diet of the paranormal, whether it was Twilight Zone or Outer Limits, Thriller with Boris Karloff. I mean, all those things. I mean, we had comic books and we had horror and sci-fi, and even though the science fiction, black and white science fiction films that we watched from the 50s and early 60s were just like really ridiculous special effects and all that, it was still an age of experimentation for all of us, to try to figure out what an alien looked like and what it looked like for extraterrestrial travel to another planet. So me and my classmates, the kids that I grew up with were raised on that. But I think with me, it just took. I mean, there's something that spoke to me in a very loud and profound voice. I'll tell you, as a kid, I remember going to our school library and reading science fiction books. And it's amazing looking back that we actually had a lot of sci-fi books about, planets that were inhabited by these bug-looking creatures and all that. So I just loved it, was fascinated by it. And I explore this and look for the answers for the same reasons that you do and everybody else does. I'm curious, I'm fascinated. I want to know what's right around the corner, what's beyond the veil. So it's that curiosity that drives me and motivates me. And I think probably curiosity is the biggest thing with me as an author. I'm just motivated to find things out and to research them. So, that's what I do. But I found a place in the paranormal. I never went looking for it. It stalked me, it followed me, it hit me over. And here I am. So that's pretty much my story.
So have you personally had any paranormal experiences or seen a UFO or a Bigfoot or anything like that?
Well, I'll answer question B first. Yeah, have I seen any UFOs? Yeah, when I'm a Vietnam veteran. I served aboard the USS Constellation, an attack carrier. I was a radarman. And I saw numerous, not one, two, or three, but numerous UFOs. And what I'm talking about solid, tangible, maneuverable contacts, not sea return, not garbage, not mass hallucinations, not a reflection from Venus, none of that. These were solid contacts. And beyond that, they were faster and more maneuverable than anything that we had, excuse me, or the Soviet Union had at the time. So that's what I saw. And my shipmates saw the same thing.
Well, that will definitely pique your interest in the subject when you see things like that, especially seeing it multiple times. Can you describe maybe the most impressive event or encounter?
I think the most impressive thing was that what we were told after the fact. Margie, keep in mind that most of us were little kids. We were little babies fighting that war. We were 20 years old of age or younger. And I think I was, 17, 18 when I first came aboard. Joined early. It's called minority enlistment. Join before you're 18, get out before you're 21. So I was over there in Nam. And we were told, after we saw these things, keep your mouth shut. You didn't see anything. During my off hours, I would check these log books, and we would go, and every time we saw a UFO, we would go and document them in the logbook. And during my off hours, just hanging around, drinking coffee, whatever, I would look at these log books, and they would have numerous UFO sightings from the other guys that were, in my department. Again, they were, and we would have the range and bearing. The next morning, these logbooks would mysteriously disappear, and we would start from scratch, and we would have a brand new one. And we would enter those range and bearing. So what were they? Well, there's a motion picture, a black and white motion picture called Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Roy Harryhausen, black and white, stop animation, very crude technique for animation. But to legitimize this sci-fi movie, there's a military intelligence guy that talks about seeing things, these anomalous things. He said that 3% of what we see are anomalous. We can't prove if they're ours, theirs, or somebody else's. And it's the same thing today. I mean, that 3% figure is what I keep on hearing. Again, we can explain most of the things that are out there, those UFOs, those UAPs. It could be temperature inversions. It could, there's just so many things that it could be. It could be pareidolia, where we look and see something in the sky, and then our mind will go and make it something that we know. We could take that unknown and like a Rorschach test and interpret that as something that we know, within our psyche. Even today, I believe that the number is 3%. 3% of what we see, we can't identify. They're anomalous. And it's frightening too, because I mean, just over Louisiana, we have a military base or an Air Force base there in Louisiana where there were all kinds of super fast, sophisticated drones that were flying over there, over this military base. And the government wasn't able to jam them and stop them and bring them down. So it's of a level of sophistication that we haven't seen. So this reminds me, in my book, The Paranormal Apocalypse, is this how it ends? I have a chapter on the drone hysteria of 2024, where around Halloween of 2024, we started to see drones over New Jersey. And everybody that looked up into the sky saw something. Again, it was like the mind sees what it wants to see. But what was interesting about this is that there was no closure. To this day, I have never seen, and I've been researching this, I've never seen a legitimate explanation for what was happening in 2024. Now, we've heard all of them. We heard that the one manufacturer of drones said his theory was that terrorists from the Ukraine, or terrorists took a nuclear weapon from the Ukraine and brought it to New Jersey, and government drones were being flown over Jersey looking for that heat signature. That was one. Another one was that the representative from South Carolina believed that these were actual extraterrestrials. We started to get more and more and more hypotheses, but again, at the end of the day, nobody was able to go and to allay our fears or apprehension and explain to us what was happening in 2024. So even before the dust settled with that, we could go back to 2023 when we had the Chinese weather balloons as big as a bus flying over there. We shot down a couple. Again, what was the closure? What was the end result? What did the American people, we the people, learn about that event? Not too much. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's still a mystery that has never been explained to us. If it was, if they were indeed Chinese spy vessels, as big as a bus, there should have been some sort of disclosure. There should have been some closure. There should have been some kind of communication between us and China explaining to the American people what that was. But again, we didn't have it in 2023, and we didn't have it in 2024. And once again, 2025, drones over Louisiana. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a paranormal researcher, and I'm like, my head's spinning. I mean, what are you hearing there in Missouri? Are you getting better intel than we are here?
No, it just compounds the problem in this drone issue, because we had them here in Missouri, we had them here in Kansas City, Independence. I saw two of them myself. Okay. One of them was absolutely huge, the size of a bus. And another one was pretty big, maybe about 6 feet in diameter. And it came over to me at my office, stopped 20 feet away from me. It came from a long distance away, stopped 20 feet away from me, like it was staring straight at me. And then it turned and it went about 50 feet away and disappeared. I mean, just vanished. And there was no place for it to go. It somehow cloaked itself or something, but I don't know. I mean, I was a witness to that one, but there were many, many others in the area, and I know there were some across the entire United States. People were in a panic over that. Yeah. We honestly didn't know if it was a foreign country that was sending something over that was really going to be bad for us, or what they could release. Maybe they could release some type of a toxin or, anything like that. And then our government was tight-lipped. Right, so that's what was so frustrating.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I believe, we the people have the right to know, but the same thing happened. Let me see, 23, 24, 25, July of 2023, we had the congressional UFO hearings. 24, we had another round. And then again, in 2025, in 23, David Grush testified that he knew, he was with military intelligence, knew where the bodies were and knew where the vehicles are.
Mhm.
He said that he would disclose that information under the right circumstances to the right people. He said that it was classified information. But again, that was in July in 2023. So again, we're all waiting. 2024, we had Luis Elizondo said pretty much the same thing, that the government isn't being transparent and they know things that they aren't telling us. 2025 was just basically the same thing. But what we did find out was that there are Navy pilot videos showing these UAPs that are faster and more maneuverable than anything that we have, that not only do they hover, but they go under the water. So hence not unidentified aerial phenomenon, but an unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So it gets stranger and stranger, but I'll tell you what, it's just, we're not getting any closer to the truth. Those congressional hearings do nothing but just promise us the answers, and and they never deliver on it. And I don't think that we're ever going to get close to the truth, because I believe that it's on a need-to-know basis. And unless you work for some dark black ops government organization a lot deeper than the CIA and FBI, I don't think that we're going to be able to get this information. And we know this because American politicians have not been able to get that information. So I'm fascinated by the prospect of finding out what this is, but I am so frustrated by the dog and pony show that we've been getting from the government. They are not coming through. They're not delivering. They're promising us so much and giving us nothing.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating, and I just finally decided I'm just going to sit back and let them play their game. As a MUFON investigator, I have run into issues with government tapping my phones, my internet, showing up on cases. We'll set an arranged time to meet somewhere, and they're there, and it's almost like, I don't know if they're keeping track of us because we're doing an investigation they want to know about, or they want to know what we know or what the witness knows, or if it's intimidation. Yeah. But they're so secretive, clandestine. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
But also there's evidence that maybe MUFON and the government are working together, at least in some states. I believe, I've had it from several sources, that the reason they actually have had these government congressional UFO hearings is because MUFON has sort of pushed the agenda and giving the government information. And it could be that the government and MUFON are working hand in hand, at least in some aspects. Now, again, we'll never know because nobody's talking, but that's what I think.
Right. Yeah, it's anything is possible, but I believe that the government can tap into anybody's computer, so therefore they would know what any organization is doing.
Right.
They would have all of our records.
Yeah, I'm a snowbird. I live summers in Pennsylvania, winters in Florida, and a couple years ago, I wrote letters to all of the six politicians that were involved in the government UFO investigations. Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, Marco Rubio, Chuck Schumer, a whole bunch of them. I forget all the names. The only one that responded was Marco Rubio. And I was encouraging Marco, who was a senator of Florida at the time, to force David Grush to show his cards and let us know where the bodies are and where the saucers are. And Marco sent me a letter back, which was wonderful. And then right after that, he was promoted to Secretary of State. So I lost my contact with the UFO community, and I'm going to try this again. But I think that maybe, your listeners could do the same thing and write to their congressional people and say, listen, I want to know what you know. I want to know if there's something to the Roswell crash. Does the government have any information there? Please share it with us. I mean, and I think with enough people talking about it or asking for it, the government will do something. Now, again, what that something is, I don't know, but I'd like to get more answers than what we've had, because what we've had is just not satisfactory at all. So,
no. Now, before we get into your book, I've got to ask you, Bigfoot. You obviously have an interest in it because you wrote a book about it. How did you get interested in that subject?
Yeah, well, I wrote a book called Coleridge and Hoodoo, which had 2 chapters on Bigfoot. Let me see, the Bigfoot Enigma, and I forget that there was another one, but Bigfoot mythology. But I wanted to go and research Bigfoot and see if I could figure it out. And, there's 2 camps. Where there were 2 distinct camps, the flesh and blood people that believe that, there was an actual carcass. And then there's people like me and Jacques Vallée and John Keel and a lot of other people that believe that it may be interdimensional. And
I'm on that bandwagon.
Pardon?
I'm with you.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Jacques Vallée was one of the first people that I read that talked about that. And it just makes sense. Because let me see if I could explain it this way. When you talk about the space brothers coming from their planet all the way to Earth, it takes so many trillions of light years, so much energy, so much time, an expenditure of all kinds of energies, that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to look at it that way. But with Einstein and Rosen, with their bridge theory or their wormhole theory, again, it hasn't been proven. But what it is you take the space-time continuum, you fold it in 2 like this, and you could punch a bridge through it. So rather than taking those trillions of light years, it takes microseconds. So it goes from one parallel universe, one dimension to another. Again, it's a theory, but so far it's probably the best workable theory that I've seen. And this is the scientific method. Even within the paranormal realm, you come up with a hypothesis and we take a look at it and say, what makes sense? Well, flesh and blood Bigfoot doesn't make sense because we've had thousands of years to find a body, to find carcass, to find DNA. We haven't had any of that. All we have is, I would say, not even circumstantial evidence. And I want to, sort of support the Bigfooters out there, the boots on the ground people. But what they have is a pile of J. Allen Hynek's high strangeness. You have multiple witnesses. That's fine. That's one. You have the smells. You have the sounds, the grunts. You have the wooden structures. You have the wood knocks, the pebbles being thrown. All of this. So you have a number of things, not just 1 or 2 things that could be a coincidence, but 3 or 4 that show that there's something of substance, not good enough for the scientific community. It doesn't give us the ultimate proof and evidence that they're looking for, but still it gives us reason to take a look at this and say, there's something there. It's more than just coincidence. So I believe that, the Bigfoot community, is onto something. And also, I think they're coming around too. They used to call people like us woo. I was known as Dr. Woo. Well, great. I mean, I love the term, but I think a lot of the people I've been talking now, especially in Western Pennsylvania, and that's home of Stan Gordon. He's our keeper of the key. For people that don't know Stan's the one that keeps all this documentation about not only Bigfoot, but orbs. And in Western Pennsylvania, we have a very fascinating chemistry of seeing cryptids along with orbs, cryptids along with flying saucers. And Stan is the one that keeps this. Again, what's interesting is, and I've known Stan for decades, but whenever the Western Pennsylvania State Police get a call about a Bigfoot or a flying saucer, they'll say, call Stan Gordon. They have his number ready and they call Stan, and Stan will take this documentation and write about it. So, we're fortunate to have somebody like Stan in our neck of the woods, but Pennsylvania is unique in its high strangeness. Pennsylvania is reputed to be number 3 in Bigfoot sightings after California and Washington State. So, we celebrate our weirdness, our strangeness. Remember, Night of the Living Dead, what came out of the Pittsburgh area back in 1968, and all the other things. We talk about the Chestnut Ridge, 100-mile stretch from Pittsburgh down to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Weird stuff happens in that area of Chestnut Ridge. I mean, weird stuff. The Kecksburg crash, Bigfoot sightings, dogman sightings, just a whole lot of things. It's weird territory there, and just amazing what's happening in our state.
Do you think that portals, ley lines, or grid lines have anything to do with the high strangeness in certain areas?
I think they have to. I mean, how else could you explain it? Again, unless we, and that's a great theory, and thanks for bringing that up. Until we have something better, what do we have? It's not magic. It's not osmosis. Just doesn't happen, for no reason. I think that looking at portals or pathways into other dimensions makes sense. And, that's what the paranormal community is saying. I mean, some of us, not all of us, but that's what some of us are saying. I think the scientific community needs to get aboard and take a look at this and see how this could be possible. I mean, they've spent so much time looking at string theories and looking at the ultimate string theory that explains everything. I think, some of these scientists have a lot of time on their hands. I mean, I love that theory. I mean, Margie, you and I could come up with that theory. Here's a theory that explains everything. I mean, come on. So, I think that the portals and all that makes sense. And it's been said more times than once that the Chestnut Ridge area outside of Pittsburgh is a portal or several portals into other dimensions. So, that makes sense that things could zigzag. And I mean, you brought up Bigfoot. They say that Bigfoot, it's interesting because all the stories about Bigfoot are pretty much the same. They don't walk, they glide. They don't reflect light, they emit light. They have by location, rapid transport. You see them in front of you and then they're behind you. Weird stuff. The possibility that they can communicate telepathically. My personal exposure to Bigfoot, I mean, there were two of them. I mean, this was like third person, but my neighbor back in Luzerne County, a guy named Joe, told me that he saw two Bigfoot creatures in Luzerne County. That's where we're from. He's my neighbor. One was cinnamon, one was black. The cinnamon one was larger than the black one. So I asked him, took down his information. I said, listen, could I give your information to Stan Gordon? And he goes, sure. So Stan called my neighbor Joe up and took the report and wrote it up, utilizing my name as the contributor or whatever, the witness, whatever. That was one. That was in my backyard. The other, and when I asked
wait. Those Bigfoot were in your backyard,
not my backyard region, not my home backyard, but right up the road at the cemetery. Yeah, so in my region. And we went up there to look, but I asked my neighbor Joe, how did they act? What did they do? He said that they looked at me like they were curious. They turned around, both of them, and looked at him like they were curious. And then they walked away like humans, a human gait, not an ape gait, not a brachiating gait, but like a human gait. And then they walked away. And I asked him several times to give me that description, and he did. Another one that I was involved with, there's a guy named Craig Long. He's a magistrate in, I believe it's Northumberland County in Pennsylvania. And at one time, years ago, he was a sheriff. He's a sheriff. He got a call, 11 o'clock at night. This older guy was panicking. So Craig went out there, and the guy was letting his dog out to go to the bathroom, 11 o'clock at night, saw this 11-foot creature that he thought was a Bigfoot. And he told Craig Log, he said, I wasn't afraid. And Craig said, well, why weren't you afraid? And he said, the Bigfoot had kind eyes. It had kind eyes.
Wow.
So I had never heard that before, but typically The Bigfoot reports are that Bigfoot is reclusive. They see us and then they run away. They're not aggressive. They don't attack us. I've only heard of 2 cases of Bigfoot being aggressive. Stone Canyon, Ape Canyon was one. And then President Theodore Roosevelt wrote a book, and he noted that a hunter friend of his, took place in Montana, was attacked and I believe killed by a Bigfoot-like creature. That was Theodore Roosevelt, our president. So, but typically Bigfoot sightings are boring. They're predictable. Nothing much happens. So this is my from what I've experienced or researched, I should say. But I did at one point. I thought I saw a Bigfoot creature, and I saw this. We were walking along the river, and there's a trail there along the river in Pennsylvania, and I saw this black shape coming towards me, and it went behind a tree, and I'm looking, and it's quite a ways away. I'm waiting for this black shape to take form, see what it is, and I'm thinking just for a second, what if it's a Bigfoot? And I got really excited. I mean, my heart's throbbing, the adrenaline and everything. And then I look in here, and it was cold out there, and it was a woman wearing like a fur coat with lapels, like shoulder lapels. And I thought it was a Bigfoot creature. And she comes out from outside the tree, and there it was. It wasn't a Bigfoot. It was just a woman. I thought it was a Bigfoot, but for maybe 3 seconds, maybe 4 seconds, I experienced, I think, the excitement of a Bigfoot sighting. That's the only time that ever happened. It wasn't real, but I mean,
oh, rats!
I know.
I hate when that happens.
I thought it was, but I mean, but I'm glad I'm so better for that experience. I mean, just wow, that was, I look, I look in Florida, I look in Pennsylvania. I don't know. It's like looking for love. Don't look. It'll happen when you're not looking. I think the same thing with Bigfoot. Just go with the flow. Be at peace. Be relaxed. Be patient. And if it's your time, you're going to see one. It's the same thing with ghost hunters. Be patient. If the ghosts or spirits want to talk to you, they'll manifest and they'll connect. So I see similarities with Bigfoot and with ghost and haunted houses. So I have a crazy theory that everything is everything. That's that.
That's not so crazy. That's what I believe. I mean, once after you have been investigating paranormal, for 30 or 40 years, you finally come to the conclusion that everything is related.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's all the same phenomena. So
yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for I don't sound so crazy now. Yes.
Well, this was weird news earlier, but this is not weird news. So, there are so many aspects to the phenomena too, like balls of light, orbs,
right?
Spirits. Have you experienced any of that?
When I was a kid, I thought I could fly. I thought I could go down in my basement, my cellar, and fly, levitate. I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was just my childish imagination, but man, it was so profound. I mean, I could remember to this day just what a wonderful feeling of freedom and everything that was. But again, I don't know what that was. But I'll say this: when people come up to me and share paranormal experiences with me, thinking that maybe I have some wonderful esoteric knowledge that they don't, and I do not. But predominantly when people come up to me, they'll tell me about the orbs that they see, orbs that follow them, or they'll talk about the dead people that they talk to, mainly family members. So that's what I get. I get the orbs and the dead people.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good start.
It's all interesting.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's amazing
in paranormal.
when I'll do book signings and there'll be somebody there that wants my ear, and they will. Oh, I mean, it's important to them. It's important, I think, for somebody to hear them and know what they're saying. And I think it's maybe their way of telling themselves that they're not crazy. That
Yeah.
what they saw makes sense, at least to another person. Okay, that it's not really totally bizarre and all that. So I think what we do, probably what your show does, your program does, is it offers therapy for people that see things and need to be validated. That no, you're not crazy. A lot of people see things. I mean, I remember J. Allen Hynek, one of my heroes, who gave us the close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. And at J. Allen Hynek, before he had his epiphany, he was a skeptic, and he apologized later that the scientific community and himself was being disrespectful to witnesses, people that saw flying saucers and saw other things, rather than saying, okay, what did you see it? Where did you see it? All this stuff, giving me some scientific facts. A lot of times they would write off these witnesses as being histrionic, as being attention seeking, as being maybe psychotic, neurotic, whatever. And at some point, J. Allen Hynek came around and he said, I've been wrong and I apologize. And we need to use the scientific method and not discount these people that have seen things. And
Right.
I think that's maybe we're in a type of renaissance where slowly we're at least accepting some of these witness reports and looking at them in a more serious manner. And I'm hoping that that's what's going on.
Oh, I agree, and I think it is. I think people are becoming more open-minded, less afraid to discuss things. But we are up on a short break, so we're going to take this break, and we'll be back right after this.
How do we make the intangible tangible? How do we come to an understanding of a phenomenon when so much information is concocted or misreported and circulated on the internet? How do we find clarity, not only in understanding individual UFO cases, but also the big picture? My name is David Marler. I've been an investigator, researcher, author, and lecturer on the UFO subject for over 35 years. I've always anchored my research in what was meticulously reported and documented regarding UFO incidents. I never succumbed to conspiracy theories. I never relied on second or third-hand reporting. I never let belief lead me. Rather, I've taken a data-driven approach towards the subject, predicated on the original, contemporaneous sources of information. Now, in conjunction with the National UFO Historical Record Center, the largest UFO archive ever assembled in the United States, I am working with a dedicated team who shares this approach and vision. Now, more than ever, we need credible material presented on the UFO subject. As we work through our vast archive, we will bring you the original source materials related to historic UFO cases. Our archive is comprised of thousands of case files derived from some of the earliest UFO investigative and research organizations, APRO, NICAP, CUFOS, and many others. Some of these are familiar cases, but the majority have never been shared or discussed publicly before, until now. Together with my colleagues, who are some of the leading historians in the United States on the UFO subject, we look to be a credible voice for the field. Everything we present is backed up by the original military or civilian UFO reports, the original audio tapes, the original correspondence, the original news clippings, and original photos. All of these are housed at the National UFO Historical Record Center, where they can be accessed by visitors. All of these materials we look to share with you, our audience, in our series, UFOs in Retrospect.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. paranormal field is changing, and now, more than ever, it's time for professionals to lead the way. Join the Oz Professional Paranormal Investigators Association, a global network of serious investigators dedicated to raising the standard of real paranormal research. Access professional certifications, advanced training, and courses exploring true investigation, psychic phenomena. If you're a real paranormal investigator, be a part of the group defining the future. Join today. Visit ozinstitute.org. That's ozinstitute.org.
And we're back with the next news, talking this evening with Maxim Furek, a paranormal author and researcher. And this is your latest book. Tell us a little bit about this, if you would, Maxim.
Yeah, in 2025, I had two books that came out. Paranormal Apocalypse, Is This How It Ends, was one, and the other one, and it just happened that they both sort of got published at the same time. The other one was The Schmurl Haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town. But Paranormal Apocalypse, I wanted to take a look at the end times, the apocalypse. And I think it's a fascinating topic. And with the way the world's going now, with all of the friction and the groups that are fractured and just a whole lot of things happening, the uncertainty, I just thought it was the right time to write this book. So it's not a self-help book, but it's a book about fear. And I start my book by quoting H.P. Lovecraft, who said, and I don't think anybody said it as well as H.P. Lovecraft. He was second only to Poe and people like that. But Lovecraft said that the most elemental emotion of man is fear, and the most powerful is fear of the unknown. And so I take a look at some of the things that I believe are causing fear in our society. And there's a whole lot of ways. How are we going to die? Well, there's like 1,000 ways. Some people are worrying about World War III. There's the possibility of global pandemics or man-made disasters. There's economic collapse. There's weather-related crises that are happening on a faster, larger scale than before. Just hotter summers. More hurricanes down here in Florida. Just a lot of things like that. Death cults. And then the end times, as prophesized in Revelations, and not just the Bible, but that whole Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition talks about the end times. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at what that fear looked like. What's promoting that fear? What entities? And then lastly, what can we do about it? So that's what my book is about. It has what I would say a happy ending, but again, these are times of uncertainty, and all you have to do, Margie, is take a look at all these motion pictures that are out there that talk about dystopian societies and apocalyptic endings. There's so many of them. We look at this vicariously to gain control of it, over it. I call it apocalyptic awe. We use this as a method to control our fear of the unknown. And we've been doing this through mythology and religion, popular culture, all that. We all do it. I conjured that term just to make sense of it. Here's one that's crazy, and I talk about this in the book. During the 50s, they were conducting thousands of nuclear explosions outside of Las Vegas. And the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce found out when these detonations were going to be. So they would go and advertise it. Tourists would come there with their beer and their lawn chairs and their sunglasses, and they would watch as these bombs went over. Now, again, we thought that it was just cute and dramatic and everything. We didn't realize that years later there was going to be a high incidence of cancer, leukemia, and all this other crazy stuff that happened with the radioactive fallout. Yeah. They even took the lead dancer from, I want to say, the Tropicana, and they made her Miss Nuclear Fission or whatever. She had a bathing suit that looked like an atomic bomb, and she was the sex symbol for this movement. It was nuclear tourism. And again, the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce was very much entrenched in this, what I would call now the dark tourism, which is exactly what it is. I mean, dark tourism today is a $1 billion industry where people will go to places like Alcatraz and Dachau, just to feel the horror, just to go and maybe relive it, rather than going to the Liberty Bell or going to, Grandma Moses' farmhouse. So, we like the bizarre, we like the forbidden, and we're drawn to it like a fly to a flame. So, it's just amazing. But that example of what they did in Las Vegas with the nuclear testing was just unbelievable.
That's insane.
Yeah, but again,
just crazy.
Again, we live in the United States of America. We're all about making money, entrepreneurs, and so why not make it from those exploding nuclear bombs? But check it out. I mean, there were a lot of these that were conducted underground and then above ground. They even had American GIs go out there and stand there and take off their glasses and look into the bomb, as the bomb exploded, just to see what would happen. We did a lot of crazy things.
Oh,
and even in Montana and Idaho and a lot of those states out that way, we don't know if the cattle mutilations, we thought they were UFOs, we thought that they were cults, we thought they were government people. We didn't know what they were, but it could be that they were government people that would go there and find these animals and surgically extract the genitalia just to see the amounts of radiation that these animals might have had in their liver. So this is probably one of the best explanations for those cattle mutilations. Again, there's others.
Really?
And that's another one that, I mean, what have you heard? Is there any better explanation? We haven't heard about this for a while.
I have been investigating animal mutilations for about 20 years.
Okay.
And in several cases, the witnesses saw UFOs before or after they found a mutilated animal.
Okay.
So is there a connection to that? Maybe. Not sure. None of my cases did they see an animal being taken up into any type of a craft.
Mm-hmm.
But in some of them, one in particular I'm thinking of in Missouri, the rancher did not hear anything at all overnight, didn't hear any helicopters. Her gate was locked. There was only one way in and out, and it had been undisturbed. And yet, here are animals way back in the center of this very big ranch, at least 80 acres. So how did that happen overnight? And then a few days later, it happened the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't have an explanation for that. In one of the cases, the animal had been picked up and moved before I got there, and the outline was on the ground, but it was indented, as if the animal had been dropped from a very, very high high altitude, and dropped down. And then, actually, I had several cases like that.
Yeah.
Very, very strange things going on.
Excuse me.
But, do we have silent helicopters? Probably. Could it have been government? I'm open to that too. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Again, and that is the realm of the paranormal. We just don't know. In Paranormal Apocalypse, I take a look at, one of the things that is of concern to me are global pandemics. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite, what do you call it? Not vices, but I like to watch movies about pandemics, The Hot Zone, virus, I mean, just Andromeda strain. What a, Michael Crichton, what wonderful books that have have a basis for reality. And in Paranormal Apocalypse, I take a look at some of these global pandemics, like the plague from the Black Plague from the Middle Ages, caused by fleas, wiped out something like 60% of Europe, the population of Europe. We had the Spanish flu from 1918. An estimated 100 million people died from that. Again, it started in Kansas, at an army base. It wasn't starting in Spain, but there. And then we had, of course, AIDS and COVID-19. Again, with AIDS, what we saw, we didn't see the aftermath of AIDS, because what we saw actually was happening like 10 years earlier. So they were able to go and track exactly where it came from and where it spread. And back in the day, they called it GRID, gay-related immunodefense. And they realized that, wait a second, this is not a gay disease. This is anybody could get it. So they changed it from GRID to AIDS. But just an amazing, story. I remember back in the 80s when we saw those pictures of Rock Hudson, this beautiful, handsome, glamorous guy, and here he had AIDS and he looked like a skeleton. I mean, it's just a very, traumatic thing to see this. But AIDS was one thing, and then COVID, and we also have the swine flu and avian flu and monkeypox and Ebola. We are not out of the woods. We're a click away from a mutation, mutating from an animal to a human and a human host. And again, this could happen. It could happen in our lifetime. Let's hope that it doesn't. But with with COVID, we just never really got to the bottom of this because it was all politicized. The Chinese were not being honest with us with what was happening in Wuhan, China. And we'll never know to this day if that COVID was something that got released, that was weaponized, or it was something that just happened, it was just an unfortunate occurrence. But I remember 2021, what we went through. I mean, it was just, these were very trying times. We got a lot of it right, a lot of it wrong. And it became politicized, like I said, and just we're still dealing with it. They're saying that the latest variant of COVID-19 is going to be showing up this summer, and it is not doesn't seem to the virus or the immunity to it doesn't seem to be having any real effect. So this is cause for concern. I've been interviewed before on Paranormal Apocalypse, and they've asked me, are you a fearmonger? And I am not a fearmonger, but I'm talking about some of these things that are possible, whether it's another war. They talk about the doomsday clock, which is getting closer and closer to midnight, with, luckily we're stepping back right now, and hopefully there'll be some stability. But again, we don't know. And there's still a lot of players like China, Russia, and North Korea that, we don't know what they're up to and what they're capable of doing. So, but anyway, there's, again, with Paranormal Apocalypse, I talk about the fear, and I talk about that connection with the paranormal. And again, if everything's the same, the paranormal fits in with the scientific and the spiritual, the religious, and that's what I try to do.
Now, Jonestown was known as the American Apocalypse.
Right.
Can you tell us about that? Why was it named that?
Yeah. Well, it was named. Well, first of all, when Jim Jones, or Reverend Jones, was he was an American preacher. His congregation was mainly African Americans, and Jim Jones said that he was part Cherokee, but he claimed that he was black. And what he did was he used fear. He told his congregants that there was going to be a nuclear war, and the only place that would be safe was South America. So he convinced these people to go mainly from San Francisco, giving him relinquishing their passports and their money, their Social Security checks, all that, to Dad Jones, to Father Jones. He believed that he was a Messiah, that he was divine, that he was like Jesus. And that's what he taught his congregants. And they went down there. He promised that Guyana would be a paradise. It would be a socialist paradise. And it wasn't. It was infested by mosquitoes. It was very difficult to plan anything. The people were starving. Dad Jones was a pervert. He was a sick man. He was a monster. He was drug addicted. He did a lot of methamphetamine. He was heterosexual, bisexual, pansexual. He tortured people. He took away their kids. He was a horrible, horrible person. And at the end, there was something like 903 people that drank the Kool-Aid, which was a combination of, I think it was chloral hydrate and Valium and something that was like Kool-Aid. His congregants drank the Kool-Aid. Either they volunteered to do that, or they had people behind them with guns that made them do that. Mm-hmm. The children went first. The nurses and the parents had syringes filled with this that they would inject down the throats of the kids. And it was something like 909 people that took that flavor. You know, we talk about drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, this was the ultimate. Right. They practiced this. They rehearsed for the day when they would do this ritualistic suicide. And then the day came when the walls were closing in. Everybody took the Kool-Aid except Father Jones, who had a gun. He took the coward's way out and he shot himself, and they found him there on the stage. So he was a coward to the end. But this was called the American Apocalypse. It was one of the worst examples of mass suicide that we've ever seen. And I'll tell you what, Margie, I knew exactly where I was at the time. I was out in the outback of Rock Springs, Wyoming. That was in December. A bunch of us were in a cabin, no TV, radio, newspapers, nothing. We were just out there doing this wilderness thing. And the first thing we heard when we came back into civilization, hey, did you hear about that mass suicide down in Guyana? No, I didn't. Why? What happened? Over 900 people killed themselves drinking Kool-Aid. That's the shock. That's where I was when I first heard that. So this Jim Jones thing, means something to me. A friend of mine who has a podcast, John Fike, Monsters, Myths, and Mullocks. He's from Indiana. He lived in the same town as Jim Jones did before he sort of got ran out of town in Indiana and ended up in San Francisco. So, but again, how did Jim Jones pull this off? He did this because he was charismatic. He was an articulate speaker. He spoke, he preached the Bible. He taught them that he was God, that he was Jesus. When they went to Guyana, he had loudspeakers that just talked about worshiping Father Jones, worship Father Jones. He was a cult in himself. So that was the American Apocalypse, and a horrendous thing. Again, how did this happen? Other than Father Jones being charismatic and sort of coercing them, talking them into it, the other thing was people were afraid. And people that are afraid are easily manipulated. And that's what happened here with the Guyana massacre. They were like lemmings. They followed the crowd. They didn't use rational thinking or critical thinking. They just followed the crowd, and they let their fear get to them. Very sad. And a lesson, certainly a lesson for all of us.
Do you think that was a case of brainwashing or mass hypnosis?
Yeah, probably both. Certainly they were brainwashed into thinking that he was a deity. They were brainwashed into thinking that he would keep them safe from this nuclear war. Follow him down to South America and you'll go to paradise. That's what he told them. So that was the promise. But what they didn't get the promise, they got punishment. So yeah, mass hallucination was probably part of it. Just mass delusions on their part. But again, frightened people that acted like lemmings and just followed one another. It was horrendous. Hopefully we've learned something from this, but we've had Charles Manson and David Koresh. We've had the Heaven's Gate with Applegate and those people. And they did basically the same thing. They went out to a diner to have a meal. They all had the same meal. And they came back to the compound in California, and they drank this concoction of, I believe it was Valium. I forget, maybe, I don't know if it was cyanide. I know in Guyana, it was cyanide and Valium and hydrochloride. I think with Heaven's Gate, it was, might have been Valium and chlorohydrate and something else. But nonetheless, they took it and they died. So
just amazing. We're going to be up on a break in about, 5 minutes. Can you stay with me after the break, or do you need to run?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Can you stay? Okay, great. So I do want to ask you also, when you say apocalypse, when I hear that term, I think of the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
What was the message of the Four Horsemen?
Well, there were the 7 seals, and this is up to interpretation. There's a group called the eschatologists. They study eschatology, the end times. And the 4 horsemen were, the first horseman was the white horse. They thought this might have been Christ, conquest. The red horse might have been blood and warfare. The third one was black. It was for the famine. And then green was the fourth one. It represented death. And then that was 4, and then 5, 6, 7. 5 was martyr. 6 was the cosmic disturbances that would happen before the end times. And then 7 was silence. But according to Revelations, Christ will reappear. The good people will feel the rapture and go into heaven. The bad people will go into the pit and wait their turn to again, allow them to go and have the rapture and go into heaven. So some eschatologists believe that we've already experienced, the apocalypse in the past, with wars and famine and all that. Some people believe that we're experiencing it now, and just look at things. I mean, things aren't getting any better. Things are pretty gloomy out there. I mean, I try to stay positive, but it's kind of weird out there. And then other people believe that the apocalypse is right around the corner. It's going to happen. So again, when it does happen, the 4 horsemen will be representative of what we're going to see, and that'll be, the conquest, the war, the famine and death. And again, we've seen so much of this throughout history, throughout the centuries. I mean, so again, we'll wait and see. I'm not sure, but history tends to repeat itself, and
it does.
Yeah, and Hal Lindsey made a whole lot of money talking about the late great planet Earth and looking at the Revelations and interpreting this, through his own lens. But it was very successful. It was very marketable, and it shows that people are really desperate to know more about the apocalypse and what's going to happen at the end. Some people believe that we're going to die, but before we die, we're going to suffer. So, we don't know. But, but with my book, I talk about having courage. Don't follow others. Don't follow the leader. Be your own person, and be strong and courageous, and use critical thinking and rational thought. Don't be a lemming. Don't follow the leaders. Don't join a cult. No good can come of that.
That's it. That's a good message.
Yep.
Keeping a positive attitude and don't join a cult.
Yeah,
and
right.
They are out there. They're very sneaky too.
They look it's just like for ghost hunters. Ghost hunters look for children. They look for people that are mentally ill and addicted. They look for vulnerable people. Ghosts do when you go into a haunted house, as your book probably talks about. I think that those people are vulnerable to the same type of people are vulnerable to cult leaders. Again, so they're looking for for somebody who's going to go and keep them strong and keep them safe. And that's what these cult leaders profess to do.
Yeah. Well, okay. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll do our final segment with Maxim Furek.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. 2026 is off to a great start, and it's almost time. With many exciting predictions and the recent emphasis on a potential major planetary event occurring in April, it promises to be a super transformational month, and we couldn't be more excited to be in Hawaii during this shift to integrate new frequencies. Folks, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. April the 20th through the 24th, 2026, join us in Kona, Hawaii for Journey to Truth's very first vacation conference retreat. Enjoy 9 presenters over 5 days with ocean adventures with dolphins and whales and sacred sites and so much more. Experience Hawaii like never before. You will enjoy 5 days on the Big Island, so don't wait. Start planning your trip today at journeytotruth.online. That's journeytotruth.online. The paranormal field is changing, and now, more than ever, it's time for professionals to lead the way. Join the Oz Professional Paranormal Investigators Association, a global network of serious investigators dedicated to raising the standard of real paranormal research. Access professional certifications, advanced training, and courses exploring true investigation, psychic phenomena. If you're a real paranormal investigator, be a part of the group defining the future. Join today. Visit ozinstitute.org. That's ozinstitute.org.
And we're back with NX News, and I'm your host, Margie Kay. We are speaking with Maxim Furek about his latest book, Paranormal Apocalypse. Is This How It Ends? And I've got to say, I love that cover, and I love the name. It's very compelling.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay.
Very dark.
I
like you said, we like dark stuff.
Well, yeah. But I view myself, Margie, more as a skeptic, as an academic. I'm trying to find the truth. I'm trying to maybe, if anything, help define the parameters of the paranormal, where it begins and ends and all that. So, I'm just trying to make sense of it. And, and since I published the Shepton mythology, 10 years ago, the paranormal doors have opened. The paranormal community is very inviting and very helpful. And I can't say enough about, how wonderful it is. And then even on my journey, meeting awesome people like you and being able to go and share different views, and have a back and forth like that. That means a lot to me to be able to do that, anyway, it's,
Let's
okay.
go to the Book of Revelation for a minute. Was that a good book or a bad book?
Well,
Message.
Well, the message is that, the second coming of Christ, that Christ will come. And if you're good, you're going to go and experience the rapture and go to heaven. But if you're bad, you're going to pay your dues. And was the same with in Islam. Those folks are supposed to go and atone to Allah. The same thing. There's a lot of commonality between within the Judeo-Christian Islamic religions. But but Revelations is the one that looks at the end times. And I think so many people are more fascinated by that because you can go and interpret what it's trying to say, with the famine and the war and
Mhm.
the four horsemen and all that. So it's very symbolic. It's different than the rest of the Bible. And I believe, and I think everybody finds it fascinating. And I think a lot of people can interpret it different ways. And your way of interpreting it, may be different than mine, but it doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong. Okay, so I think there's just a whole lot of leeway there. And I've talked to ministers about this, and again, there's a lot of conjecture. There's nothing that's really solid about it. I mean, it just depends on who you're talking to. But when I first heard that word eschatology, that there's actually people that make a study of the end times, I thought, wow, this is pretty good. So they're called eschatologists, and that's what they do. And but we're all gonna die sometime. We all have a expiration date. I think the best thing we could do is live your fullest life, enjoy, find as much joy and happiness as you can. Surround yourself with like-minded people that support you and like you and love your light, and be kind and help other people. And like they say in AA and Alcoholics Anonymous, which is, I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor, and AA has a million sayings and they're all appropriate. But in AA, they say, you can't keep it unless you give it away. So whatever knowledge we have, whatever advice we have, give it to somebody else, share it with somebody else. It makes the world a better place. It makes you a better person. And, that's just the way to go. I mean, there's wonderful ways to be an even better human being. And I tell people within the paranormal community, let's go and get our act together, work together, be kind. And there's just a lot of chaos and a lot of backbiting that I've seen within the community that some of the communities that I know. And I think we can do better. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree completely. That's why we started a new organization for professionals.
Mhm.
So that's in process. It's in the growing stages at the moment, but
Yeah.
I think it might help.
Yeah. And
Hopefully
I
it
saw
will.
that. I'm glad you're putting an emphasis on the ethics surrounding that, because I think we need to do that, and even with, as you know, with ghost hunters, they always talk about intention, they talk about patience, but most of all, they talk about having respect. When you go into a haunted house, you need to go and take it easy. You're not always going to see something, but whatever you do, do it respectfully. So.
All right. When we talk about the end times, the apocalypse, people have a tendency to think that Christianity is the only religion to address that. Is that true?
No, it's not. No, out of the 4 major religions, and again, Christianity borrows heavily on the Jewish tradition, so we're just like pretty much, with that. But with Christianity, Hindu, Buddhism, and Islam, all of those are pretty much the same, except for Buddhism, which believes it's almost like a softer, gentler way of looking at the world, that we get reincarnated. We don't reach the apocalypse where we're going to get punished or rewarded. It's just this a reincarnation where we go through these cycles of being reincarnated as male and female until we get it right, till we're complete, till we've reached our highest consciousness. So, Buddhism looks at it differently. And, I consider myself, I'm a former altar boy. I consider myself a Catholic Buddhist. Again, it's my own concoction,
Your own religion.
And you know what? Here's the thing too. We all have a relationship with our higher power, our God, our Father Yahweh, whoever that might be. And that's sacred. That's what we do, and and that needs to be honored, and and I feel good about that. So anyway, I consider myself a spiritual person, and don't mind saying that, realizing that a lot of people don't like to hear that word God, because maybe God wasn't there when their little baby brother died. So they got a thing against God, because of things that might have happened. So I'm not sure, but I know some people harbor animosity towards organized religion and also for, Father Yahweh. But that's not me, and that's probably not you. But
No,
they can deal
you're
with
correct.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're on the same line of thinking there. Why were authors Eric von Däniken and Hal Lindsey so incredibly popular and successful?
Yeah, they were. Hal Lindsey was able to go and write about the end times, write about revelations, and people had a hunger. They wanted to know about this. This was, I think, in the 70s, and this book became such a big seller, and there were made-for-TV movies, and there was a motion picture. I mean, we couldn't get enough of Revelations and his take on that. So that was one thing. And then the thing with Eric von Däniken pretty much copied H.P. Lovecraft. And H.P. Lovecraft talked about the ancient ones, the wise ones coming down, that they came here to Earth and they had civilizations and they worshiped demons and all this stuff, Dagon and all these slippery, slimy, tentacled creatures. And but Van Däniken emulated a lot of what H.P. Lovecraft wrote. And he talked about ancient aliens, that the only reason that we've made progress with all these things, and the one that gets me are with the pyramids in Egypt. Van Däniken said that it was the Space Brothers that came down and gave us the technology to build those pyramids. And he was a Austrian bartender, I believe, and he wrote this book. And what's interesting about Eric von Däniken, who was successful, he hit it out of the park, but people were more eager to embrace pseudoscience than real science. The pseudoscience about Space Brothers coming down from outer space was a lot more juicier than the boring scientific model. And I'll tell you what, I disagree with all that. Because one thing about the Egyptian pyramids, to this day, we don't know how they did it. We talk about levers and fulcrums. We talk about 200,000 slaves rolling things, up the hill and all that. We don't know. All we know is that in the Middle East, and it wasn't just Egypt, but in the Middle East, there was a lot of progressive thinking. It was a renaissance as far as astronomy and mathematics and, calculating and just everything. I mean, it was the epicenter. Samaria and Egypt and the Middle East was really just hit it out of the park with their accomplishments. Again, we view the ancients as being naive and maybe even stupid and backward and all that. And we got it so wrong, because the ancients, I think, were overachievers. They were very successful. And again, using the example of the pyramids, to this day, we have a whole lot of theories about how they built the pyramids, but we don't know how they did it, and we don't know exactly what they were for, whether it was for a religious or scientific, purposes. So Van Däniken, despite the fact that he got a lot of things wrong, still was successful. I mean, he was the guru whenever he went to these conferences. I mean, he was the man. So he just recently died. But again, you can't. I mean, he was the one who climbed that ladder. He was the spokesperson. He was the ambassador. Again, I think what he preached was pseudoscience, but still, people wanted to hear that. So that's what we get from him.
But since we still don't have an explanation for the construction of the pyramids and the Sphinx, I mean, I can't believe, I've taken a look at some of the documentaries, but also some photos and videos that people put up. The structures in that part of the world are amazing. And for our brilliant engineers and scientists now in 2026 to say we don't know how they did it, does that speak to a an a civilization that was more advanced than we are now?
I don't know if they were more advanced than we are now, but I think their science was advanced in a way that maybe it's escaped us. Maybe we haven't been able to go and figure it out. I think that's what it is. I mean, I think that, man is incredible. Here's my theory. I talk about in The Last Man on Earth in Paranormal Apocalypse. That was the science fiction motion picture, Vincent Price, and it's awesome. It's classic. It's the best. And at the end, these zombies kill him. He dies Christ-like with a spear through his side. And it's almost like Veronica wiping his face, the veil. But he says to the freaks, the zombies, the blood eaters, he goes, "You're freaks and I'm a man." And at the end, he makes his stand. And the last thing he does it's like a sacrifice. He's an apocalyptic sacrifice in the sci-fi movie. And what he's saying is that man is better than animals. And I talk a little bit about that. We are better because we have more DNA. More is better. And when we say more DNA, more brain power, man has the ability to have better cognition, more cognition than the animals, and spirituality. The thing that sets us apart from the animals is our cognition and our spirituality. We can emote, we can feel compassion, we can feel empathy, some of us, for one another. That's what we do. And I think that with saying that, every generation, even with the ancient Egyptians, whatever it was that they did, whatever cognitive abilities they had, again, you have to look at that and see that this was pretty much the cradle of civilization, where instead of having the oral history where we would pass down records from father to son, from grandfather to father to son, where they would memorize things. In ancient Sumeria, we started to have the clay tablets where they actually wrote stuff down. What a breakthrough. So we find these things and we know that there's information about their legends, their mythology, about their gods and their demons. So there's things there that we're still trying to figure out that we don't know. But certainly Eric von Daniken and Hal Lindsey played a part in helping to satisfy our curiosity as to ancient times and future times, the ancient past and the revelation. So pretty good combination with Eric von Daniken and Hal Lindsey. They hit it from both ends. So that was pretty good.
Star Trek, the series, they showed so many things that were super advanced and futuristic, and then now we have them in real life. We have cell phones, we have communicators. I always wondered if there was so much of that. What do you think about the theory that maybe there was some time travel involved, seeing the future, something like that with that series?
You mean that Gene Roddenberry was in contact with somebody that gave him those ideas? Yeah, who knows? Maybe. I'm going to hold out for the possibility that happened. I'll tell you, the interdimensional theory, time travel, astral projection, remote viewing. These are things well within the realm of possibility. I'll tell you this. We always thought that Montauk was the place. That's where the government set up shop after the Philadelphia experiment. So they did all these mind control experiments there in Montauk, and and had motion pictures about that. I don't think it was in Montauk. I think the government does that, but I think it was all over. I did a presentation a couple of years ago about I've written extensively about White Witch, Dr. Frederick Lamont Santee. He was the high priest for the Coven of the Kata. He was the youngest person to graduate from Harvard. Yeah, we should do a program just about him. But anyway, he hung out with Sybil Leek and Aleister Crowley and Bertram Russell. I mean, he was just like, intelligent people attract intelligent people. But anyway, Santee was one of them that said that there's no difference between the paranormal and the scientific. He was saying it's all the same. We just don't know, what the connection is, the cause and effect. And he was just a great guy. I knew him. He was right up the street from me. And, when I look at my career as a paranormal guy, I mean, it's amazing how many of these people that I just ran into. I mean, I knew Ed and Lorraine Warren, and with Annabelle, we went down to see the Annabelle doll in July 11th, 2025. I met Dan Rivera. I told Dan that, I'm writing a book on the Schmurl haunting, and we were going to do a phone interview on Monday the 14th. Dan Rivera died on Sunday the 13th. He died a day before I was supposed to interview him. And
was that a suspicious death?
Well, the coroner said that he had cardiac issues and it was a heart attack. So that's fine. That's what they said. But people that are in the paranormal realm, like the Psychic Vincent sisters, say no. Annabelle had demonic energies, and Dan Rivera was handling Annabelle. He was the chief handler, and it's just possible that those demonic energies wore him down and eventually killed him. So that's the paranormal explanation. I think there's more. I think that has more credibility than just him having a heart attack. He was a young man. I think he was like 47, something like that. He was just a young man.
It was very strange.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I mean, call it what you will. I mean, coincidence or something else, but I don't know. We learned there's no such thing as a coincidence. So.
Well, right. Just like you were mentioned earlier, running into all of these scientists, and the same sort of thing happens to me, but it seems that these people show up right at the time when you need them. Have you noticed that trend in your life?
I call them guardian angels. People, we're here. I think we're on a journey. And we don't know what the destination is, but every now and then we have a guardian angel with us. We have ancestors. I have my father who's with me. And as we're walking, what they do is they don't lift us up and carry us. They don't do battle for us, but they just say, you're going in the right direction. They give us a pat they affirm us. So they're guardian angels. They give us hope and affirmation. And I think that's, we can take hope in that and celebrate that, because I think that's the way it works. And I think we have not only that, but I think I have this crazy universal law of 90, that 30% of the people are going to love your light. They love what you represent, your energy, your charisma, whatever your accomplishments, and they're going to do things to help you. There's 30% that don't like you for whatever reason. Doesn't matter, jealousy, political envy, whatever. I mean, political jealousy, it doesn't matter. I mean, professional jealousy. And then the other 30% are busy with their own stuff. They could care less about me or you, So it's 30, 30, and 30. There's 90. So on a good day, you might have 60% that have your back. But just realize that, that not everybody's going to like me, and I'm sure that maybe 30% at least are going to take their hits and try to bring me down. As same for you. It's the way of the world. We deal with this. We're strong. I think maybe even you as a woman need to be even stronger because of the bias in American society, and that's held women back for decades, and with the glass ceiling and everything else. But
I don't feel held back.
Pardon?
I don't feel held back.
Okay.
I never have.
Okay. Well,
but
okay.
I do observe that with some women.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. But it is a societal perception.
Yeah. But I mean, if you can recognize that, that's good. Then you've been able to take one step beyond from that. So, but anyway, I'm just saying that, what I'm doing right now, I mean, like, I'm just like living the life I want to live. I enjoy being a paranormal guy. And I love it when people come up to me and say, "Hey, I read your book and I like this." I mean, they'll give me a specific thing. And it's joy. It makes you feel good. It validates us.
Mhm.
And because we all need validation, we all need to be loved and recognized. And with a podcast like this, I mean, listen, I mean, I get to have voice. I mean, I can talk for what, an hour or whatever, and talk about my opinions and my views and my research. And what a wonderful thing. I mean, this brings me a joy and happiness. You know, this is wonderful. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I'm glad to have you. You're an amazing person and wonderful guest. So we're definitely going to have to talk later. Also, before I forget, don't leave the green room when we're when we close off here in a few minutes,
Okay.
if you would, so that the tape will process.
Okay.
Tape, that shows my age, doesn't it? Video. Have you noticed? Now, this is kind of off topic, but I noticed a guitar in the background. I noticed you mentioned music earlier. I'm a musician. I have
Oh,
found a lot of people who are into paranormal subjects of all types are also musicians. And there's so many, I can't think it's a coincidence. Do you have any thoughts on that?
the only thing that I would say that would come to mind is, you know, I am not good at all with mathematics. I mean, don't even, you know, God, it just doesn't work. I mean, for some reason, it hurts my brain to even think about that. I can't compute, can't do that. But I think it's the other side of my brain that seems to be really active and energized. I'm a writer. I'm a good writer. It flows through me. I mean, God, I can't say enough about the creative writing process with me, how it starts with a paragraph and then more and more how it flows, how I get through the research, get the quotes, put it together. It's an amazing thing to do that. It's that work in progress. Again, an example of our spirituality and our creativity. And with Maslow, that talked about the hierarchy of needs, you know, after food and water and safety, we have love, group affiliation, and then we climb up and we do things like create, you know, art and creativity until we get to the top. And you know, it used to be self-actualization, and they changed it. Now it's transformation, which is the best you could do as a person is to help someone else. So by holding their hand and walking them through something, that's the best that we could do. It's almost like the golden rule. It's like do unto others. It's just the best we can do is to help others. So we used to think, you know, decades ago that the best thing we could do is be the best Margie Kay you could be, or be the best Maxim Furek. No, it's not about us. That's too egocentric. It's about us helping other people. It's about us and our connection to other people. And the fact that, you know, if everything is everything, then we're connected to everyone, you know, the great, you know,
Mhm.
the energy, the vibration and all that. So, I mean, I believe that. And I forget what
Do you
what
think
your
that music helps you understand vibration?
Yeah, I think so. I think that musicians also use that same side of the brain. So again, it's part of that thing. I think words and chords are the same, you know? I mean, you know, with as a writer, we just find more words to put there to say the same thing pretty much.
Mhm.
With guitar players, you know, it's, you know, you got your AED, you got your DCF, you know, you got your C GF. I mean, you know, you got all those common chords and and all the variations of it. I mean, we've pretty
Yeah.
much said it all and done it all, but yet people still coming up with unique ways to play those same three chords, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's
Amazing how
true.
I mean,
That's true.
that's like magic, you know?
Yeah.
That's like
Well, we
paranormal.
are unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me, Maxim, and your website, maximfurek.com.
Yeah.
I assume that's where everybody's going to find out where to get your books.
Yeah, and I hope that if they check me out, I could hook them up with autographed copies of my book, It'd be
Okay.
great. Again, I would say to your listeners, support local bookstores, libraries, podcasts, and authors. Local people, not corporate America.
Good message. Good
Yeah.
message.
So
Thank you so much. And we will definitely be in touch.
Okay, very good.
All right. That was Maxim Furek. This is Margie Kay, and we will be back next week with another edition of Annex News.